Ogerpon is the flagship legendary Pokemon of the new Teal Mask DLC, and it's already made quite a name for itself in competitive. While the loyal trio pictured on the left have been quite underwhelming competitively, Ogerpon has been anything but. This Pokemon has multiple different masks it can wear that alter its form, each granting a different type and ability, and it's also the first Pokemon to ever gain new traits upon terastallizing. So let's take a look at each of these Ogerpon forms and see what they can do, folks, starting with the base form. If you're not wearing any of the special mask items, Ogerpon will just be in this base form, which is a mono grass type with the ability Defiant, and when you terastallize, you gain a permanent speed boost for the remainder of the game, a 1 speed increase. Also noteworthy is the fact that these Ogerpon forms can only terastallize into a single type, and the base form can only be Terra Grass. So that's inherently a bit restrictive. This form is interesting. I mean, it has tools like Swords Dance. You could perhaps take advantage of Defiant and that speed boost to become a powerful sweeper. You're only a grass type, so you only have Grass Stab, but you have options like Knock Off, Encore for Disruption, Stomping Tantrum, and gaining a speed boost is nice. But when I look at this, I can't help but feel that it's outclassed by Masquerada, a fellow grass type with similar tools. I mean, Masquerada has a really nice Grass Stab option itself with a 100% crit rate. It's got Dark Stab, which is really nice with Knock Off its Sucker Punch and, other tools as well. Protean, which grants stab on various moves. It's also faster base speed wise. I feel like Masquerada is more versatile, has similar tools but better. The only real advantage of Ogerpon over Masquerada is Defiant and that unique Terra effect, but I think being restricted to only Terra Grass is kind of limiting. So I think of all the Ogerpon forms, the base form is probably the worst one. In my eyes, I feel like all the different mask forms are superior. Speaking of, here's Ogerpon's cornerstone mask form, which grants a grass rock typing and the ability Sturdy, which, if you don't know, allows you to survive on 1 HP if you're attacked from full health and it would otherwise one-hit KO. The cornerstone mask, much like all the other masks, grants 1.2 times damage to all attacks. That's really powerful. I mean, if this was just an item on its own, it would probably be used a lot. It's like Life Orb without the drawback, slightly less damage. I mean, this is really strong. And Ivy Cudgel for Ogerpon. Cornerstone form is Rock type, which is a really good offensive type. This form is probably the best one at setting up Swords Dance. You can lead off with it in Swords Dance. It'll always live on 1 health, even if something could one-hit KO it. All of these forms also have access to Trailblaze, which is a really nice option. Not only Grass Stab, but a form of speed raising. You could Swords Dance plus Trailblaze as a combo, or just take advantage of, you're already pretty fast. You can kind of go for the throat immediately with this. Horn Leech is also cool on this because it heals you. And if you heal back to full health, you can get the Sturdy effect again. You can get knocked down to 1. I don't think the Terra will be that useful in this form. You Terra Rock and you gain Defense, which this one gains Defense as its permanent stat raise. I don't think that's super valuable on Rock typing. It can maybe give you opportunities to Swords Dance in some situations, but I think you're going to take advantage of Sturdy most of the time. The main reason you would Terra Rock is probably for extra damage on your Ivy Cudgel more than anything, not as much caring about the defense boost. I think this form has a lot of potential. Maybe it's a bit underexplored. The other two mask forms are stealing the spotlight a bit, but I think this form has a lot going for it. Sturdy's really good. So is Rock Stab. I think it's got offensive advantages. Ogerpon's Wellspring form, when it's wearing the Wellspring mask, is really good. Very nice. It has Water Absorb as an ability, always useful, Water Immunity. It has a Water Grass type combination, and when it terastallizes, it can only be Water type, which is a great defensive typing anyway that a lot of stuff already chooses to Terra into. It's one of the most popular Terra types, and it gains a special defense boost. It loses Water Absorb, but that's negligible, honestly. You already take Peanuts from water moves, and I've just got here as an example set, like just a full-on utility set. Ogerpon has a lot of utility options, and I think this form is going to be the best at using them because it has the best defensive typing and defensive ability upon terastallizing. It's got Spikes, Knock Off, U-Turn, Synthesis for healing, and honestly, you can not only run all these good utility options and stuff like Horn Leech maybe for Grass Stab and a form of healing, Ivy Cudgel, if you want. It's a water type attack on this one, which is a really nice, powerful water physical move, really good. You can also do a Swords Dance set on this, and honestly, gaining special defense and becoming mono water type helps a lot for setup opportunities. You could do a similar Trailblaze thing if you like. All these forms have the same moves, yet they can all kind of do something like this. So this set is a lot of versatility compared to the other ones. It can take advantage of those utility options more or go in an aggressive direction. Water Grass, pretty nice offensive stab types. But the form that most people are talking about, folks, is the Fire form. This form has been kind of controversial, in fact. I think there was a tiering survey, and one of the questions was, what do you think of Ogerpon Hearthflame? You think it's too busted? Do you think it's too broken? Now, what's crazy about this is Firegrass is, I mean, it has its issues. It's rock weak and stuff like that, but Firegrass is a famously powerful stab combination. Often stuff that resists fire is weak to grass and vice versa. They're just really good complementary types. A lot of fire types historically use grass coverage to help them out against their counters. So this is probably the most offensively potent of all of the Ogerpons, and when it terastallizes, it becomes fire type and gains an attack boost. I mean, that's really strong because you not only gain extra stab damage on fire moves, you gain an attack boost, which just means you nuke through whatever the hell. And its ability is Mold Breaker, which is also really useful. Allows it to hit flash fire Pokemon like Heatran and Ceruledge with fire moves. I mean, usually Heatran is a really hard counter to Pokemon like this, but Mold Breaker changes that. It's worth noting that if you Terra, you lose Mold Breaker. You gain Embody Aspect, so you can no longer hit a Heatran with fire move. But so some have used Swords Dance on this. I mean, I think you can actually just use this as a attack immediately with it, and it's just really strong. You could just Terra with it off the bat and go in. It's a really powerful offensive wall breaker. It gains an attack boost already, so you almost don't even need Swords Dance. You can use Swords Dance too, but I think the best thing about this is it's just immediately threatening, and it has this coverage that is famously fantastic, both with stab and the Terra effect works great on it. So you can do Trailblaze is really nice. Horn Leech just for stab. Wood Hammer maybe. Knockoff. Stomping Tantrum to hit Heatran post Terastallize maybe. And other fire types. U-turn if you like. Yeah, this Pokemon's really powerful. I think though that it's way too early to quick ban it or anything like that. I don't think it's quite on that level. It's definitely good. It's definitely very immediately threatening. But I will say, you compare Ogerpon to like other legendaries in Gen 9, like Chien Pao and I mean, the Paradox forms aren't legendaries, but some of them are basically on the same power level as legendaries, and they kind of have a similar vibe. I like the design of Ogerpon in all these forms way more. I think it's an improvement game design wise. I think like all these forms have their own cool advantages. I like the restriction on like they can only Terra into one type. That's like an interesting restriction. Stat raise thing. It's like a trade-off, like a different way to use your one per game Terra, which is a cool twist on the mechanics. And I mean, maybe this fire form is a little bit one-dimensional design-wise. You just Terra and click button. But at least there's kind of a decision to be made in the ability trade-off. It's maybe a little bit like Mega Evolution. And I think that I like the fact that this stat distribution is not as crazy as some of the other ones. I mean, the bulk is a little bit lackluster, and then 110 speed. I mean, back in the day, that would have been great. But these days, 110 speed is not that insane, and a lot of stuff can outrun and revenge kill this. It does have Trailblaze, but then that's a weak attack. It might be telegraphed or something. That's the one thing that maybe makes this guy snowball out of control is Trailblaze, but also they are restricted to this item, and it's a great item, but that inherently makes them more predictable and a bit maybe manageable. So maybe give him some time. We can adapt, see what happens. Ogerpon Hearthflame in particular is the kind of Pokemon that thrives in early metagames, the kind of Pokemon that just goes in offensively and crushes people trying to experiment and build fun stuff. If you just have a guy that clicks a big button, that kind of destroys people doing more experimental team building. I would also not be surprised if this guy ended up being banned from singles. This kind of thing is powerful. Terra Fire, do enormous damage. We'll see what happens. It's a bit too early to make any big decisions. But what do you think, folks? Do you disagree with me? Do you think Hearthflame is, even though it's early, you think he's bannable? I guess I would understand such an argument. Thank you to the patrons and also donators to the Gen 3 OU tournament I am hosting alongside Simeon and various other staff called ADV Revival. You can check that out on my second channel, which I will link at the pinned comment. Thank you, everybody. I'll catch you later.
KO by one hit. It scattered light.
The money got different.